I'm joined now by the Attorney General of New York, Letitia James. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Brian, for having me.
So I want to get into some new news that had just broken, and that is that you are co-leading an effort to sue the Trump administration over some changes that they've made as it relates to HHS and DOJ. But before we jump into that, there's a story that was kind of percolating that I want to ask you about. And there was concern a few months back that Donald Trump had given a heads up to before his announcement as it relates to tariffs, that announcement was going to be handed down, and that resulted in some accusations of insider trading. We, of course, know that Donald Trump's Department of Justice, that Donald Trump's FBI, his SEC, isn't going to investigate possible crimes committed by Donald Trump or any Republicans. But as this kind of relates to the stock market, is that something that your office might have jurisdiction in? Is it something that your office is looking into?
So, as you know, Brian, we have jurisdiction over the Martin Act. And so we investigate market manipulations and we basically police Wall Street. And so this is an area that we are looking into. The question is, in the past, we've had partners on the federal level, federal agencies that work with our office. And as you know, those federal agencies, unfortunately, are now beholden to the President of the United States and do
Right.
not work for the general public. So it's an issue that we are considering. And at this point in time, there's really nothing more to say on that matter.
You can say no if I'm asking a question that you can't answer, but is there a
Yeah.
way, hypothetically speaking, is there a way, if there is no cooperation with the SEC, for example, that New York has enough tools unto itself to be able to conduct an investigation or proceed with any charges?
It all depends upon the facts. And as you know, I don't operate in hypotheticals.
Okay. All right. So let's get into what you're doing right now, which is leading this coalition of 19 other state attorneys general in suing the Trump administration. Can you speak about what this effort is in regards to?
So HHS, under Secretary Kennedy, has engaged in a brazen assault on public health. Its mission is to protect and promote public health, and they're doing the opposite. They are dismantling Head Start, dismantling vaccinations. They are dismantling the 9/11 health program. They're removing doctors. They're dismantling lead poisoning for children. They're dismantling protections for firefighters. And the list goes on and on. They're dismantling opioid funding at a time when we are seeing increases in addiction. And SAMHSA, the suicide prevention hotline, they are dismantling it. And they're laying off 20,000 workers from health and hospitals services. And it, again, is this frontal attack on public health under administration which unfortunately does not believe in science and does not believe in facts.
And so what is the goal here? What are you trying to accomplish along with these other attorneys general?
To basically halt all of these reductions in force, RIFs, to restore all of these programs. $1 billion, Brian, in states and localities to support a number of programs and services to promote public health. Tobacco cessation. We are seeing tobacco companies applaud the effort
Right.
by this administration. And what we are trying to do is maintain the status quo. Listen, we oppose bloat. We oppose corruption. We we believe in efficiency. But this is just not the way to do it. That's not the role of one individual. They should do it, again, in cooperation with Congress and consistent to and consistent with the law. There are congressional mandates. There are programs that are mandated by law. And for the President of the United States just to rearrange, re-engineer government with the stroke of a pen is illegal, unconstitutional, and exceeds his authority.
Is the fight that you're bringing to the Trump administration here on firm legal ground as it relates to some precedent or even very recent precedent in terms of all of these cases that have been brought forward, the majority of which Trump has lost as it relates to his efforts to unilaterally block funding that's been legally allocated by Congress?
So, Brian, you said it right. We're winning. He's losing. He's upset. And that's why, I'm on his target list. The reality is that he is acting arbitrarily. He's acting in violation of the Separation of Powers Act. He fails to recognize that Congress has the power of the purse. And last but not least, he is seeking to basically broaden and expand executive power, and it constitutes overreach.
Well, on that note, switching gears a little bit here, but on that note of seeking to expand executive power, Donald Trump has come in front of the Department of Justice and basically given a list of names. That list includes Mark Elias, Norm Eisen. Obviously, you have been a target of his ire in the past, and so
I'm in good company.
In good company, that's right. You can judge yourself by the company you're in, and you are in
Exactly.
good company there. But what does it say that someone is so overtly trying to wield our law enforcement apparatus as kind of like this personal army to settle some vendettas that he has because you dared uphold the law in front of him?
They're doing a dishonor to the oath that they've taken. I took an oath to the Constitution. I took an oath to uphold the law and to follow the Constitution, and to follow the rule of law. I did not take an oath to a king or to one individual. And it is my job as the Attorney General of the great state of New York to protect its citizens against any harm, both foreign and or domestic. And so it's really critically important that individuals understand that these attacks, the harm that he's causing to farmers, veterans, law enforcement, to 9/11 heroes, to regular everyday people, regular citizens, to children, and to seniors who depend upon Meals on Wheels. For me to sit idly by and do absolutely nothing in the face of all of these threats, in the face of the loss of billions of dollars to the state of New York that we would have to pick up, or in some cases, programs would just be dismantled.
Right.
Is just something that I cannot conceive of, and something which is in contravention to my mission and to my powers, and most importantly, to my oath of office.
Something that's been a little bit troublesome for me to figure out is we have seen the ways in which Donald Trump will go after these prosecutors at the DOJ or the FBI for the crime of having done their job or investigating him or January 6th, whatever it may be. These were virtuous efforts that were carried out by these prosecutors, efforts that resulted in indictments when they were brought in front of grand juries. And we're seeing now that a lot of the folks who Donald Trump is pressuring out are indeed taking this way to leave government. And they're resigning because, look, it's not surprising why these folks are resigning when the alternative is to work for somebody like Pam Bondi or Kash Patel or Dan Bongino. But the flip side of that, in light of these virtuous resignations, is that those spots are then going to become open and filled with somebody who's going to show adherence not to the Constitution, not to statute, not to the law, but instead to Donald Trump. He's making sure that everybody who fills these spots are again, loyal to him. And so what is your take on this, where on one side, you do have, it makes sense why these law enforcement officers are not going to be falling over themselves to work for a DOJ that is openly that is openly working in deference to Donald Trump. But on the flip side, when they do leave, we're left with a weaker DOJ, a DOJ that again is showing more loyalty to Donald Trump than the Constitution.
Individuals who are exiting DOJ are profiles in courage. Individuals who took an oath in office to the Constitution, and individuals who are not going to put their reputation and or their professionalism on the line. And what we have heard, if you read some of the arguments and if you witness some of the hearings, is that oftentimes these attorneys come to court ill-prepared, inexperienced, and they make arguments which are in total contradiction and in contravention of the law. And that's why they're leaving in record numbers.
Yeah.
And that's why, we're winning. In some cases, we actually feel sorry for them because they're embarrassed. And because privately what they say to us is like, they can't do this anymore. and they have to leave. They just can't do this anymore. And going forward, it's going to be a challenge because, I am blessed to represent an office with the best, with some of the best legal minds in this nation. And when they go to court, they're prepared.
Yeah.
And they make these arguments consistent with the law and with precedent. And to face some of these attorneys in DOJ that make ridiculous and outlandish arguments is a shame.
And that really just read like they were dictated onto paper by Donald Trump himself. I mean, I've read some of these transcriptions from these hearings where the Trump administration officials have to go in and speak to a judge and are juggling their desire not to get sanctioned and to lose their own law licenses with their, the expectation of fealty that they're supposed to give to Donald Trump. And these two things are obviously in conflict, and you can read that in plain as day on the papers that they have to submit to the judges here. And
without any facts.
Right.
And sometimes their argument is inconsistent with what we are hearing
from Trump himself.
From Trump himself.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate. And Brian, let me just close by saying this. That's why we're getting so many resumes from former employees of DOJ.
Yeah.
We're flooded with resumes. And I wish that I could expand my office all across this nation because there are so many individuals who are former DOJ employees, individuals who are retired, individuals in private practice who are running now and who want to be a part of an effort to represent the public will, the public good, and to defend the rule of law.
And finally, let's finish off with this. We are watching right now as the Trump administration is kind of subverting reality here and pretending that, for example, as it relates to this illegal deportation of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, that this was somehow not a 9-0 unanimous decision against the Trump administration, but instead a 9-0 decision in favor of the Trump administration. So if they can't win on the facts, they'll just turn reality itself on its head. But what this represents in effect is a slow roll toward a constitutional crisis. This is one branch of government, the executive branch, basically defying the will of the judicial branch. And so I think maybe Trump is under this impression that if he does it slowly or out in the open, that somehow it won't feel as grave as it is. But can I get your reaction to the fact that we are right now watching this constitutional crisis unfold in real time?
This is the first time that I've ever heard President Trump say, I don't know, and that he's relying upon his brilliant attorneys.
Right.
And his brilliant attorneys are telling him X when the reality is something else.
Right.
And the reality is, and it's pretty clear from this decision, that obviously he should do everything that he can to expedite and to secure Mr. Garcia's return back to these United States and or to provide him with simple due process.
Right.
And that's all that we are requesting, simple due process. But Mr. Trump, President Trump, refuses to admit that he's ever made a mistake. And he refuses, notwithstanding the fact that this kidnapping is in violation of our foundational principles of this country, and totally inconsistent with the rule of law and totally inconsistent with the Supreme Court. I would urge the United States Supreme Court to make it plain to Mr. Trump, to DOJ, to Homeland Security, that Mr. Garcia should be returned immediately with all due haste.
Let me ask one more quick question, and that is Donald Trump's response of, I don't know, to whether or not his job is to uphold the law. Your reaction to that?
He took an oath. He took an oath, as we all did. We pledged to the flag, and we pledged on, and he put his hand on a Bible and said that he was going to uphold the law. He would follow the Constitution. And he would do it, obviously, as president of these United States. We are more divided than ever. And more individuals, obviously, are experiencing chaos and confusion. And a lot of this is intentional. Intentional because he wants the American public and attorneys to look away from the grift and from the self-enrichment. But at the end of the day, all that we are asking is to just normalize government. This is not how government works. And it's unfortunate that he is taking a wrecking ball to our government and to serving individuals who rely upon government each and every day, including seniors who rely upon Social Security, including children who rely upon Head Start, including law enforcement who rely upon law enforcement grants, and to individuals who rely upon meals and people, low-income individuals who rely upon heat and energy. That's all that we're asking. And all that I am doing is my job to protect the interest of the residents of this great state who elected me as the Attorney General.
Perfectly put. Well, look, let me just say that fighters are in short supply, and that has been my rallying cry, especially in the last few months since the results of this last election. So very grateful for the work you're doing and the forward-leaning posture you're taking with all of this. Attorney General Letitia James, thank you so much for your time.
I appreciate you so much. Thank you. Let's continue to inform the electorate. Let's continue to inform Americans about what is happening to our democracy, and let us stand together in community and raise our voices and fight back.